معرفة.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let us discuss about a bit on the Dana Gas case, right? So why this is important? I feel this is important because this case has opened up a lot of questions which are very pertinent, very important, and which needs to be addressed so that the sukuk industry really prospers in the right direction or in the right way, and it gives comfort to each party of the sukuk structure, meaning to say the investors, the regulator, the legal councils, the Sharia scholars, everybody. So this had opened up a lot of questions for each one of us to address, understand, and take some action points and implement them. In a nutshell, basically Dana Gas had issued a sukuk in 2007. The size was $1 billion. It had successfully issued a sukuk. This is a company based in the UAE. From 2007 until the maturity was 2013. In 2013, they again reissued. So the sukuk had matured. They had again reissued for 850 million, which was supposed to be maturing in 2017. There were certain actions which happened from 2017 to 18, which had opened up a lot of questions, right? So briefly, let us just look at quickly the timeline. So in June 2017, Dana Gas unilaterally declared their sukuk is not compliant. Why did they say that the sukuk is not compliant? One of the points and one of the rationales which they had mentioned was that the sukuk was a mudaraba sukuk. And by principle, in a mudaraba sukuk is based on actual profit and loss in a business venture. So their point was that if the way the mudaraba is defined in the legal system of the UAE, it very clearly says that you cannot hold mudarib liable in case if there is a loss in the business venture. But in the sukuk structure, there was, because the sukuk was built on the English law, and as in all sukuks, there is a concept of purchase undertaking, where the purchase undertaking is exercised in case of default or maturity. And as this was a mudaraba sukuk, the obligor, in this case Dana Gas, was obligated to purchase back the assets at a pre-agreed value, which is the face value of the sukuk. So Dana Gas said that how can a mudarib, which is Dana Gas, made obligated to purchase the assets because the Dana Gas business, for example, had not performed the way it was performed, had to perform to make that whole amount of the principal value of the sukuk. So that was their rationale to say that this is not compliant. And then it went to the other point: if this is not Sharia compliant, then we are not obligated to pay you the due amount. So this is how the discussion had started. So in December 2017, Dana Gas seeks permission from the Sharjah court to participate in the UK court proceedings and is granted. Right, because there are two parties here. So there are bankers representing the interest of investors, and there was Dana Gas, who was the client. So now in the third thing happened in January 2018, Dana Gas fails in talks and UK courts reject Dana Gas appeals. In February 2018, the UK High Court rules in favor of the creditors. The arguments which were done in the UK High Court were as follows, right? So basically, the UK High Court was looking this from the UK legal perspective. The arguments in the English High Court was that the Dana Gas sought separate rulings from the Sharjah Federal Court of First Instance and the English High Court, arguing that the documents were invalid and unenforceable. Right, so this was the first argument. The second argument was conditional obligation. Dana Gas argued that the sale agreement was illegal under the UAE law, which meant that the purchase undertaking's payment requirement would not apply. So as I said, this was the second argument which was put. The third was the void purchase undertaking, meaning to say that the purchase undertaking was claimed to be void due to a mistake, as both parties allegedly believed the mudaraba structure was lawful under the UAE law. So what they said, that mudaraba structure had certain principles, and when you're obligating Dana Gas under the purchase undertaking, that does not go in line with it. And the last thing which was argued in the court was Dana Gas was contended that the purchase undertaking required performance in the UAE, meaning the English court should consider its enforceability under UAE law. Now, the English High Court rejected all the three arguments on the November 14th, and then they had passed the verdict in favor of the investors. What was the rationale of the English High Court? The English High Court upheld the validity and the enforceability of the purchase undertaking, requiring Dana Gas to make the necessary payments to the sukuk holders. So the English law said that no, the purchase undertaking is a valid agreement and you are obligated to pay amount to the sukuk holders. The second point was the payment of the excise price under the purchase undertaking was not conditional upon the transfer of assets under the UAE law. The actions were consecutive, not concurrent. What it means is that the English court felt that even though there is no exercise of the sale and purchase because it conflicts with the mudaraba, still there is an obligation for you to pay back the amount. Now English law applied the enforceability of the purchase undertaking without the consideration of the UAE law. So this was how the English law had interpreted the regulation, the law, and they gave the judgment in favor of the sukuk holders. So this case basically had highlighted three main points. Point number one, that it is very important while structuring a sukuk to see to it that the local laws where the underlying sukuk assets are based, right, that does not conflict with the English law. This is number one. So it needs to be checked whether the mudaraba application principles in the local law, are they being in conflict in case if the English law is applied. That was number one. Number two point, which was very important, was that in terms of the Sharia risk, at the time of the financial close or at the time when the sukuk is being finalized, it is very important that the obligor gives a clear consent and a clear approval that they are comfortable with the Sharia structure and they are fine with it and they do not have any objection to it, because this is very important. So it should not happen that during the life of the sukuk, suddenly the client comes and says that the transaction was not valid from a Sharia perspective and hence I will not pay. So that kind of a disclaimer needs to be signed off from the client to raise any objection with regards to Sharia compliance before signing the agreement and before entering into the transaction, and that objection should not be raised during the life of the sukuk in case if nothing has changed in the structure and the application of the whole structure. So this is again a very important point, and lot of legal counsels post this sukuk have come up with a kind of a waiver clause in these sukuk agreements with regards to the Sharia compliance piece. So this is the second piece. The third point, which is very important, is with regards to enforceability and what are the legal arrangements at the government to government level with regards to enforceability of judgments. So this is also very important. Most of the sovereigns where the sukuk issuances are happening and where the clients are based, they do engage with the English law mainly. For example, like most of the sukuks today are based on English law. So it's important at least to engage with these regulators and see to it that there is an agreement to enforce the English law judgments in these jurisdictions, because unless and until that happens, the confidence of the investors would always be shaky. So to have that strong confidence built in the investors, because they have to understand that tomorrow in case of any conflict and in case if the case goes to the court, the judgment of the court is enforceable in these jurisdictions. So these are three important points, I think, which came out from this whole Dana Gas Sukuk case, which we all have to understand, discuss, implement, so that this whole exercise of structuring sukuks become more robust and at the same time provides confidence to all the relevant parties in it.
معرفة